Canon released the incredible C300 Mark III back in April, and it seems like they are hell-bent on making 2020 their year, because today, you're taking our first look at the incredibly hyped up Canon EOS R5. We've been very lucky to have the R5 in our hands for a few days from Canon to really put it through its paces. However, this camera is a pre-production unit, so stuff may change when the camera hits production. Quickly, let's talk about the differences between the R5 and the R6, as Canon have released the R6 alongside the R5 today. Canon are pitching this as a mix of the 6D and the 7D lines when it comes to performance. The R6 is a lower resolution 20 megapixel full frame sensor, whereas the R5 is 45 megapixels. If you want to learn some more in-depth differences about the two, please check out our video explaining that via the link in our description. So first, let's look at the pricing. This is something that people have been debating online a lot. The R5 comes in at just £4,199 including VAT, or just under £3,500 without VAT. This is a pretty compelling price, and is cheaper than I thought the camera would be. The R6 is a more affordable camera with a price of just £2,499.99 including VAT, or around £2,000 without VAT for the body only. So because we only got our hands on the R5, this is going to be a proper deep dive into that camera. So let's have a quick look at the camera physically. The R5 has been beefed up a decent amount over the R. The ergonomics feel really nice. There seems to be some new curves that weren't there on the EOS R, and it just feels better in the hand. The body frame itself is made from the same magnesium alloy parts that are in the 1DX Mark III. This means that it weighs in at around 738 grams, including a battery and a carb. It's also dust and drip proof. But let's have a quick look around the camera and see what is new physically. On the front you have the RF mount housing the 45 megapixel full frame sensor. We will get back to that later, but one detail I really like is the fact that the shutter comes up and down when you turn the camera on and off, protecting the sensor from dirt and dust getting onto it. The RF mount itself is great to see again, as it is an incredibly versatile mount. This mount has a shorter flange distance of just 20mm when compared to the more traditional mounts like the 44mm flange of EF and 52mm of PL. This means that manufacturers do not need to incorporate additional elements to bend light to travel a greater distance from the exit pupil of the lens to the sensor. With less corrective elements comes less aberrations and the ability to design smaller, faster lenses with the same or better quality. This shorter flange also gives you the ability to mount a huge range of glass onto it, and there are only a handful of lenses and mounts that you can't adapt to it. This means that you can use any of the great native RF lenses as well as a range of adapters to get a huge range of other lenses onto the cam, but we will take a look at the lens options and adapters in a bit. You also have a 3-pin port which can be used with time-lapse remotes, a depth of field preview button and an infrared receiver. On the back, you have the fantastic 5.76 million dot 120 fps EVF. This is a big improvement over the one on the EOS R, which was only 3.6 million dot, with a max refresh rate of 60 frames per second. It's really nice. You then have the fully articulating touchscreen, which is similar in design to the one featured on the R. It's a 3.15 inch 2.1 million dot resolution touchscreen LCD that is decently bright, and you can navigate through the menus and even touch AF with it. One really nice detail is a little gap to the bottom right of the screen, which was at the top of the screen on the EOS R. This allows you to flip the screen out without having to do it from the bottom of the camera and makes it much easier to do so. The back layout and buttons have also changed a little since the R. You have a new rate button, a nicely positioned AF on button, a joystick which has replaced the slide bar, which honestly I think is a good thing. Having a joystick here is so much better for navigating the menus and moving AF points around. Buttons can be rebound for what you want, and you can even have 2 different profiles, one for when the camera is in stills mode and one for when it is in movie mode. The dial here has also changed. Because of the addition of the joystick, this is no longer a D-pad, just a wheel. This function makes sense and makes controlling exposure really nice, as you have 3 dials to independently adjust all you need to do for exposure at your fingertips. The back groove for digging your thumb in feels decent, which adds to the improved ergonomics of the camera. On the top you have a very similar layout to the EOS R. There is a sensor distance mark, the new and improved on-off switch, a hot shoe, the same really handy top screen as the R, a light toggle switch for the top screen, the mode dial which doubles as a dial for adjustments, a lock button, record button, another dial for adjustments, a function button, and finally a shutter button. On the bottom, you have the battery slot, which takes LP6 batteries. With the release of the R5, Canon have also released the LP6NH, which is a slightly beefier version of the LP6N. You then have a 1/4" thread for mounting, and that's pretty much it. On the left, you have a standard 3.5mm microphone input and headphone output. A nice detail is these are better spaced than the EOS R because the remote port has been removed. Then there is a flash sync port, a USB-C port. With this port, you can power the camera with the Canon PCE-1 while it's on, but it will not charge the battery. However, when you turn the camera off, it will then start charging the battery. Lastly, you have the micro HDMI port, with which you can output 4210-bit in Canon log or 4210-bit HDR PQ 4K up to 60 frames a second. So this could pair quite nicely with a Ninja 5 if you want to shoot ProRes and shoot past the stills camera recording limit of 29 minutes and 59 seconds. To continue HDMI output for longer than 30 minutes, you need to select this option in the HDMI display setting, then head over to the wrench tab, go to power saving and disable auto power off. On the right hand side, you have a dual card slot, one of which is a CF Express and the other being an SD UHS 2 slot. It's nice that you have the option to shoot with either, and with that you can shoot proxies in 2 different formats, 8K DCI 24 and 25p RAW to the CF Express, along with a DCI 4K MP4 IPB file to the SD card. This will be handy if your computer cannot handle playback over the 8K RAW files, which are pretty hefty, even for my pretty beefy system. There are some really handy accessories that surround the EOS R series of cameras for video creators. So let's start off looking at RF mount adapters and RF lenses. With the RF mount short flange distance comes a huge range of adapters for a huge range of lenses. However, I feel like there are a few that are really interesting. When Canon released the EOS R in 2018, they also released their range of RF mount adapters. This included a regular RF to EF mount, an RF to EF mount with a ring on the mount that will allow you to define what that ring does. I like putting aperture here, and lastly but no means least, the drop-in filter adapter. This adapter can have one of 3 filters placed into it. Those are a clear filter, a polarizing filter, and a variable ND filter. Being able to use these is awesome, as it means not only can you use a huge range of EF lenses with AF compatibility, but also use a rear mounted variable ND, which gives you 1.5 to 9 stops of ND. If you're using EF lenses, this is a no-brainer, as AF still performs fantastically, and now you have the ability to change lenses and not have to worry about front-mounted NDs. Talking about ND mounts, Kibitai have also been making a range of RF adapters. They will be doing both a regular RF to PL adapter as well as an RF to PL version of their fantastic revolver that people with RED cameras have grown to love. This gives you the ability to use a range of 3 filter cartridges, S, A or B. With this version of the revolver, it doesn't come with a cartridge, so you can choose what one you want to pick up. There are also a bunch of adapters from companies such as Metabones, Photodiox, Vocas, Wooden Camera, Kipon, MTF, Leica. Honestly, there's way too many to cover in this video. With adapters, it means you can use a range of lenses. However, the number of RF lenses are growing, and there are some truly fantastic options. There are currently 11 RF lenses from Canon. However, with the release of the R5, they also announced a couple of new lenses to help flesh out their line. An 85 f2 macro IS STM, a 100-500 f4.5 to 7.1 IS USM, a 600mm f11 IS STM, and an 800mm f11 IS STM, giving people even more RF mount lens options. They have also released both 1.4x and 2x RF mount extenders, and you can see the compatibility here. However, I had access to a few different Canon lenses on the R5. I had the 15-35 2.8 IS, the 24-70 2.8 IS, the 24-105 f4 IS, the 70-200 2.8 IS, the 50-1.2 and the 85 1.2. So a pretty good selection. Honestly, they are all pretty fantastic, but I really like that 24-70, it's so nice. As well as Canon, there are also a few other companies making lenses for RF mount, such as Samyang and Laowa, some of which I have here. Laowa were awesome enough to send me their recently released 9mm t2.9 and 15mm t2.1 cine lenses, both in RF mount. This version of the 9mm is for Super 35 cameras, but the 15mm will cover full frame sensors. These lenses feel as good as you expect from a Laowa cine lens, and it's a really good sign of things to come from other third-party manufacturers as well. As this ecosystem evolves, more and more lens manufacturers are going to get involved, and create RF mount lenses. With the intro of the R5, Canon also released an updated LP6 battery, the LP6NH, as well as a battery grip. The new battery is a slightly higher capacity version of the LP6N. It has a capacity of approximately 2138 mAh from the E6N's 1865 mAh capacity. You can use this with the existing LC-E6 charger. The battery grip feels great on the camera and adds a bunch of buttons. If you're a professional photographer looking at this camera, the battery grip is a must. It allows you to use 2 LP6 batteries and will also allow you to power the camera with the PDE-1 USB power adapter. This will charge the batteries in the grip itself while the camera remains on. When it comes to media, you can use either CF Express or SD. CF Express is still pretty pricey at the moment, but honestly, this will be such a long-lasting media type because of its crazy read and write speeds that I wouldn't worry about investing into it. I did run into one issue, however. I only got a chance to use Sandisk CF Express cards, but I did use both 64GB and 512GB. The 64GB will not record 8K RAW longer than like 5 seconds. However, 512GB would. 128 and 256GB variants should work as well, but please check our website for the officially recommended media. You can also use SD cards to record a range of codecs, but if you want to be safe here, I'd pick up a V60 or V90 card. You also have the ability to record different types of media to specific cards and record proxies while shooting video. Let's have a look at the menu system. Straight off the bat, this camera is quick. It starts up in around 1 second and you can start shooting after about 2, which is awesome. Navigating through the system is incredibly snappy and it feels faster than ever before. The main screen you are welcomed by can be changed by hitting the info button cycles through the different display presets, and if you hit Q here, you have some key video settings pop up. This is really nicely designed for both touch and physical camera control. The camera's menu system is set up into photo mode and movie mode, so you can change this by hitting the top mode button and then hitting info. This changes the first page of the menu system depending on what mode you're in. However, we will be focusing on the video side of stuff here. The first page is very simple and really only shows a couple of basic functions you need quick access to. However, I would suggest creating your own menu tabs with all of these settings that you think you're going to be using quickly. There are some new and existing settings that I think are worth looking at first. Off the bat, you have the ability to rebind a ton of buttons to a range of options, which means you can rebind to whatever you want. There is now an overheating setting also, which is designed to help increase the time available for movie recording. This seems to be reducing the processing quality of your standby image to try and keep the camera's temperature down, because of course you're recording 8K RAW in a body that's this size. It's going to create some heat. We'll talk more about this later on. When it comes to exposure tools, you have 3 options. You have the regular exposure meter that you expect in DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, a histogram which you can toggle between regular and RGB, and zebras. And however, one thing that you can't do is use peaking and zebras at the same time. You can toggle the histogram on and off by hitting the info button while cycling through the different shooting info display presets. Within the menu, you have the option to turn off presets that you may not want to use here, toggle on a range of grids, change your histogram from brightness to RGB, and toggle the focus distance display and tweak it. The body itself features built-in 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. The EOS R5 features a 45 megapixel full frame 36x24mm sensor with a native ISO 400 when in C-Log. The camera is powered by Canon's new Digic X processor, which is the reason why this camera has so much processing power behind it to do things like shoot 8K RAW video while using very intelligent dual pixel autofocus. The max recording resolution with the R5 is 8K DCI, which is 8192 pixels by 4320, and you can shoot in both a full frame mode and a crop mode. However, the crop mode does have limited recording options compared to full frame mode. We did manage to shoot some tests, however, we aren't allowed to share them. We did some general image quality side-by-sides with a C300 Mark III and a C500 Mark II, as well as the R5, and then tried to match them in Resolve after. They match pretty well once you've done a quick pass in Resolve, so if you're a Cinema EOS owner looking at the R5 as a B or C cam, you'll have no trouble matching them. When it comes to color spaces and gammas, you have a few options. You can shoot in C-Log, HDR-PQ, as well as a range of picture styles that Canon cameras usually come with. Let's start off looking at HDR-PQ. HDR-PQ, or Perceptual Quantizer, is a new gamma curve or transfer function for HDR certified by Dolby. When you toggle HDR PQ, you can choose which display assist mode for shooting and playback you want. Here you can choose between exposure or tones, but this won't affect your recording results. When you toggle PQ, it also says that it's worth toggling highlight tone priority, which Canon says could increase noise in darker areas, but should get you nicer highlight roll-off. Next you have C-Log. Here you can't use a range of other in-camera processing options, but if you're wanting to try and get the most out of the camera, this is what you want to be using. Within this menu, you can toggle a view assist, which applies a LUT so you can accurately monitor while still recording C-Log and change the color space. It's a shame you can't input your own LUTs here, but we can't have it all. The native ISO for C-Log is ISO 400, and C-Log is rated for up to 12 stops of dynamic range roughly, which is a little less than the 14 stops of C-Log 3 and the 15 stops of C-Log 2. This means as long as you understand the limitations of the R5, it could cut with the T300 Mark III and 500 well. However, I do think Canon have laid all this out in the menu system a bit all over the place. You have HDR PQ on the second page here with the highlight tone priority, then you have C-Log on the next page with picture styles. It's just not very clear how this all affects each other, so here it is clear for you. C-Log will disable everything that may affect your image, and you can toggle a few settings for that here in its menu system. However, in PQ, you can still change your picture style and highlight tone priority. Canon have told me that for the best latitude in PQ to toggle that onto D+2, and that does seem to be correct. Even though you can still change the picture profile, it won't actually affect your image. However, when you're not in C-Log or PQ, these profiles will make a difference to your recorded image. This camera has a huge range of codec and format combinations, so Canon have implemented this really nice new system where you can choose your resolution, then your frame rate, and then your codec. You have 5 different resolutions you can shoot in: 8K DCI, 8K UHD, 4K DCI, 4K UHD, and Full HD. You can then shoot in a range of frame rates across these resolutions. Canon have done a really nice job at making it really clear what resolutions have what frame rates, and codecs available by graying out what you can choose. You have the option to shoot in RAW, All-I, IPB, and IPB Lite. RAW isn't Cinema Raw Lite like the C200 or 500 Mark II. This is a similar RAW format to the 1DX Mark III. RAW is only available in 8K DCI and can be shot at 24, 25, and 30 frames per second, and is limited to roughly 20 minutes of recording to avoid overheating issues. The data rates of this are around 2600 megabits a second. This means a minute of recording is around 19.5 gigabytes, which is quite a lot. However, as soon as you're not shooting raw data, rates get a lot more manageable. You can switch between 8-bit and 10-bit pretty easily also. When you have C-Log or HDR PQ enabled, you're shooting in 10-bit. If you're shooting in anything else except RAW, you're in 8-bit, and then when you're in RAW, it's 12-bit. You also have 4K HQ mode. This mode toggles on oversampling. This takes the entire 8K sensor readout and downsamples it to 4K. This improves overall quality by helping with anti-aliasing, resolution, and signal-to-noise ratios. With all these codecs, you can only record a few to the SD card. The following formats cannot be recorded to the SD card. However, there is a bunch that we can record, which is a really good option. On the subject of storage, I think the storage you're going to be editing off is really important. If you want the smoothest playback possible with the 8K RAW files, I would suggest editing them off of the fastest storage you can get. The best experience I had editing these was off of our G-Tech Thunderbolt 3 SSD Pro or internally off my NVMe boot drive. The R5 can also shoot 4K DCI and UHD 120 frames per second without any crop, which is pretty awesome. When you record in this mode, clips are recorded at 120 and will play back at 30p base, and clips recorded at 100p will play back at 25p base, which you can then adjust in your software of choice. Unfortunately, sound is not recorded when in high frame rate mode, and you cannot shoot this frame rate in the crop modes. While recording this, the max frame rate your HDMI will output is 50 or 60p. One quick note when shooting in HFR mode is that you are limited to 7 minutes and 29 seconds of recording time to keep within the 30-minute limit for stills cameras, but you'll be able to hit the record button straight again and get shooting again. We did shoot some shots of these high frame rates, but unfortunately again, can't show them. It looks pretty decent, though I do want to test it a bit further with a proper production unit. The R5 also features in-body image stabilization. Now this is camera-based sensor shift type, aka it has a mechanism that moves the image sensor around. So to turn the IBIS on with a lens that has lens IS, you'll need to just toggle it on the lens. When you have a lens without IBIS on, the IBIS menu will appear in camera. Because of the shifting sensor, lenses with larger image circles will have more powerful IS, as the sensor can shift more. So depending on what lens you put on, depends on how many stops of image stabilization you can get. If you use this with non-IS lenses, you will have 5 stops of stabilization, but if you use it with either EF or RF lenses with IS, you can get up to 8 stops of stabilization depending on the lens. The camera also features the same electronic IS built into the C300, C500 as well. You have 2 options, on and enhanced. On crops in a little bit to approximately 90% and stabilizes a little. Enhanced crops in even more to approximately 70%, but will stabilize it even more. This cannot be used with 8K RAW mode, but can be used in the rest of the formats. This could be handy, but use wisely. As you expect, the autofocus in the R5 is absolutely fantastic. However, the R5 now features DAF version 2, which takes the existing DAF system that people know and love and makes it even better. This has added a bunch of animal tracking modes, as well as the ability to shoot with AF in every single frame rate option in 8K and 4K modes, even in slow motion and even with face and eye tracking. That is insane. Every time I pick this camera up, the speed of the AF just blows me away each time. One thing we noticed that was really interesting was how amazing the camera is at autofocusing in low light. Both the R5 and the R6 should be fantastic at this, as the R6 is rated to work down to -6.5 EV and the R5 is rated for -6 EV. There are going to be a huge amount of people wanting to use EF lenses, so we tested how the AF performed when using Canon's RF to EF adapter and a 24-72.8.2 versus the RF 24-72.8. I honestly could not see a difference, which is awesome for anyone with a collection of EF glass, though I am intrigued to see how third-party lenses work with it as well. As well as some fantastic AF tweaks and settings, the R5 also features some really good manual focus assist tools. You have peaking, which you can tweak the color of and the sensitivity. You have focus guide, which is my favorite manual focus assist tool that Canon have. It's amazing. You can either move this around using the joystick or have it track a face or person, which is fantastic. You then also have a 6 and 15 times zoom. However, you can't do this while recording, which is a bit of a shame, but it's nice to have to get focus beforehand. The camera features a time-lapse movie mode that you can shoot in 8K, 4K and Full HD, as well as an interval timer function for stills time-lapse modes. This movie mode captures images and then creates the video file in camera. You are able to set the interval and the number of exposures depending on the desired speed of that sequence you want. AF electronic IS and audio recording will not work when in this mode, and you will also lose your HDMI output. These can be formatted in 8K UHD, 4K UHD, Full HD, All-I, 25p and 30p. It's awesome to have that choice. I've mainly spoken about the camera's video performance, but of course this camera is primarily a stills camera, and I find this camera so much more comfortable than previous R series cameras for that. I mean, it's still a stills camera first and foremost after all. The EOS R made me long for a joystick on the back, and now that we have it back, the camera's ergonomics are on par with the 5 series. This new camera can capture raw stills at up to 12 frames per second when using the mechanical shutter and 20 when using the electronic shutter. This is incredibly fast, and when you pair that with the insane autofocus, you can really capture some amazing stills. I also think the 8K RAW video could be really handy for photographers wanting to capture even more frames and then pulling out the frame they want in post. The R5 is a pretty small body, considering what it can do. When you look at the likes of the S1H, which I think is its closest competitor currently, it's a decent amount smaller and doesn't feature any kind of vents or cooling fans or fan controls or anything, like the S1H does, and other cinema cameras. This means that there are some limitations when it comes to the recording times because of how much Canon is trying to get out of this camera. Canon have given us some information about how long people can roughly expect across the different recording formats, which you can see here. Once the camera has overheated, however, you will have to let it cool down. Canon have recommended recovery times after overheating, which you can see here as well. These limitations will make working with this camera as an A camera quite challenging, to be honest with you. So if you plan on shooting these higher quality formats, just be wary of it. However, you could shoot in any of the other available formats, as there are no overheating issues in some of the middle quality formats. I really wish I could have shown you some test footage. From what we did manage to shoot, the camera's image looks really promising. As soon as we got our hands on a camera that we can actually shoot with and show you guys some proper test footage with, we'll make sure to get it online as quick as we can. But from our first look, it's really impressive what Canon have managed to squeeze into such a small camera body. You have some of the most impressive autofocus performance I've ever seen, incredible image stabilization, a growing RF ecosystem, and some serious video horsepower make the R5 a good option for hybrid shooters. However, the overheating limitations may put some video shooters off. However, if you understand how it works and how to work around it, then this camera does offer a lot of other features. And let us know what you think of the Canon R5 in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit like and make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to make sure you catch our upcoming test video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.